And those were the beginnings of the Olympian gods.
Zeus retrieved the rock with which his mother deceived his father. It can be seen even now at the sacred shrine of Delphi.
There's always a kind of inherent conflict and tension between fathers and sons. Greece has been, really until this century, a subsistence economy. And so if you have a small farm, the father is in charge of that. The son, even the first son, is not going to get any kind of rights until the father moves on, retires or dies.
What is the concern there? There's a real concern, obviously, about issues of succession and power.
After Zeus rescued his brothers and sisters from their father, they seized Mount Olympus. From this stronghold, they battled for control of the world against their father, aunts and uncles, all of whom were titans. Finally, the gods and goddesses of Olympus prevailed, acknowledging Zeus, also god of the sky, as their king. As yet, there was no such thing as human beings. Their arrival in the world would be a disturbing and provocative event. According to the ancient Greek poet Hesiod, generations of gods continued to struggle with one another, all before humanity's arrival in the cosmos.
I think it says something very interesting about a culture, whether it considers its formative moments to be ones of conflict or ones of sort of unified production, peaceful production. I am overwhelmed each time I study or teach a course that deals with Greek mythology, how persistent these conflicts are.
After triumphing over the Titans, the great god Zeus married Metis, a Titan herself, and therefore his aunt. Eventually they had a daughter, who burst fully grown and armed from his forehead. Athena, goddess of warriors. Other gods and goddesses entered the world, each with different functions. They all had, however, one thing in common, something which set them apart from virtually all other divinities in the ancient world. Their images were human.
If you think of Egyptian religion, with its gods having animal heads, various animal bodies, or Near Eastern, Akkadian, Mesopotamian, Hittite religion, where you see divinities associated with lions and other fierce animals, the Greeks' decision to somehow represent the gods as being like Greeks is really an innovation. And we're not really sure where it came from.
When you think about divinity, you're talking about the unknown. And you really can only talk about the unknown in terms of the known. In the Hebrew Bible, in Genesis, it says, God came down and he walked in the Garden of Eden in the cool of the evening. It's almost impossible to talk about divinities without doing something like that. Xenophanes said if horses could draw, horses would draw their gods as horses.
In Homer's account, it was only after the gods and goddesses took up residence on Mount Olympus that the story of human beings began to unfold. The Judeo-Christian account of the world's beginning culminated in God's creation of man, who was given dominion over all the other creatures on earth. The ancient Greeks believed the birth of humans was of little importance to the cosmos.
Although the Greeks had a human-centered universe, their view of man was almost as an afterthought. He was a smaller creature in the universe, something certainly lesser than the gods. And therefore the creation of humans had to take a second or third place down the line in the Greek world of the cosmos and the Olympian deities. So why was the creation of man given such a small role in the creation of the universe?
It could be that Greeks just assumed that human beings were always around, that human beings are in fact so important that there was never a stage when they didn't exist. It's still something of a mystery.
I like to think that Greek myth reflects a certain understanding by the Greeks of humans' place in the world, that humans are not the center of things, that there's a whole wealth of the created world into which humans have to fit. This is a great contrast with a number of other cultures and belief systems.
As with the dawn of the gods, Greek mythology contains differing accounts of the creation of man. In none of them, however, are mankind's beginnings auspicious.
We lived like ants in the ground, and we couldn't read, and we didn't know the seasons, and we didn't know the weather, and we couldn't think, and we couldn't hear. We were just despicable worms and worth despising.
In Homer's version of the creation of humans, the god Prometheus formed the first man from mud and breathed life into him. In Hesiod's account, Zeus created succeeding races of men in gold, silver, bronze, and iron. Each race symbolized differing aspects of the human condition. The first race of men was made from gold. Their lives were easy, their crops abundant. They feasted with the gods.
In the beginning, there was a golden age, and people lived on the earth, and all the crops grew of their own accord, and everybody was good, and everybody was just. And those people, after a while, just disappeared.
The golden race appeared to have lived a perfect existence, seemingly in paradise. And yet, this race vanished without explanation. In the biblical account of paradise, life's hardships are a direct result of Adam and Eve's fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. For the golden race of men in Greek mythology, there is no such explanation for their disappearance. The reason for their fate remains a mystery.
The Greek system, in which humans and their creation are not really a topic of concern, is so different from what you find in Genesis, where we have this focus on the creation of the first man. Of course, in Genesis, it's related to the further story, what happened after the first man and woman disobeyed God. In Greek myth, disobeying the gods is not such a big deal as it is in Genesis.
So why doesn't Hesiod have an answer, or why doesn't Hesiod give an answer to why the golden race came to an end with the Judeo-Christian myth of the fall from the Garden of Eden? Because that clearly was the fault of Adam and Eve. And what that means is there is no really good explanation for why the world is so difficult now, why humans can't have an easy time.
After the golden race became extinct, Zeus fashioned men from silver.
The Silver Age people were babies forever, and then they had this short period of maturity, and then they had a horrible old age. And they disappeared under the earth. They were more arrogant and did not worship the gods sufficiently.
Next came the men of bronze, who exterminated themselves through constant warfare. Eventually, the men of iron appeared, the men who live today.
So basically, this story of degeneration has moved to the present age, where actually it shows a balance in these various views of the important things in life for the Greeks, namely your attitudes to the gods and your attitudes towards warfare and fighting for your city-state, and how you can get along or not get along with each other.
But all